a new concept for a new generation. The digital age will turn the next generation to more global citizens whose regional and geographic borders only happens in the history books because of the increasing income potential that the next generation will be able to enjoy. Markets will further develop, new industries will be further develop, and new industries will be created to adapt in the new world market order. Industries in space exploration will be one of them, but also industries creating luxury homes in the middle of the forest, small cities in the oceans, where there are no restrictions. Supply will also be incorporated in the new world normal. The future world and markets will actively engage in cooperation, despite what may seem like mayhem in the year 2011. New democracies will emerge, and strong system of governance will be modeled to these aspiring nation leaders. Systematically, commerce will become more harmonized in developing logistics, which will allow developing countries to easily implement trade structures into their economies, and that will be able to follow. The next generation will be a class of people that will see discord and civil unrest as a reality in the old world societies, but will be able to combat them more effectively and efficiently in today's FACECONOMIC world. The new normal will expand a more global attitude where individuals will be more open to working abroad and securing residency in various parts of the world. Frugality will also be a big influence in the decision-making process of upcoming social media users in the next few years. They will incorporate accounting and budgeting skills much more sophisticatedly than we do now. The idea behind their uncanny skills in budgeting is not for local market consumption of products and services, but will have a global influence in this dimension. The next generation will plan for international travel and job mobility in the 21st century. Amidst of all this, a few will engage in domestic consumption and local domicile, but will be dissatisfied in their choice at some point in time. Those that have opted to remain in domestic settings that they have gone to know will be exposed to an increasing number of individuals that have had international living and working experience and have found fulfillment in their lives because of what they have accomplished abroad. FACECONOMICS is a powerful idea that will continue to evolve in a spectrum of a limitless possibility for those that will open up their minds and welcome this new normal into their lives. Many will gravitate to social media to collect understanding and eventually accept the new market normal that is taking place. An even larger portion of the world population will use the new platform of international interaction to develop new opportunities for themselves. Okay, I think I've gone long enough. The FACECONOMIC definition, when we were trying to really develop the concept and the word, was kind of different. It's kind of a struggle for us because when you're operating on a macro and macro level and trying to adjust the verbiage so that it fully incorporates the terms and what the actual relevance of that word is to economics, was a bit hard for us to do. It took us about 2 weeks to really develop this word FACECONOMICS as a macroeconomic, social and economic development adaptation, utilizing social media to influence changes in market development worldwide. It is often attributed to economic potential of a group or members of the society utilizing social media to influence market segmentation and/or. See, that's where it gets harder when you say and/or. To attract foreign direct investment in market entry worldwide. FACECONOMIC is the multiplier effect consists of various demographics of users engaging the world community to expand on business, cultural, social, political, and international platform, focusing on globalization of markets. So it's a new concept. As I mentioned, even international NGO organizations that are looking at statistics, even, like I said, OECD, Eurostat, IMF, UNDP, World Bank, have yet to really develop a structure, a macro and macroeconomic structure that will show FACECONOMICS on it. The reason for that is because someone with a high school education from South Africa can now learn to do XHTML, HTML, JavaScript, all these programming language on their own with just a high school education versus if you go to the US, take a CMIS class or computer science class, pay around ballpark of $15,000 just to learn the same information that someone from South Africa is able to learn without having to pay that much money, or messing around with so much sophisticated tools in order for them to be able to program and do database systems and all that. Does that make sense? Da. Bine. Să vreau spus mulțumesc frumos pentru timpul tău. Eu îmi foarte place aici, în România. Mulțumesc pentru ciorba de burtă. Eu cred eu vreau să continuez să dezvoltare economică în România și proiectul meu aici. Și mersi frumos pentru timpul tău. If you have any other question, please feel free to ask. I don't know how much time we have, but
We have for more questions.
okay, for more questions. Go ahead.
So you talked about one of the implications of social media on the global convergence of consumer tastes. And the second part of my question is, in your view, how can that global convergence of consumer taste affect the global markets of Romania and other similar countries?
You have sectors, right? When you look at your product placement, Romania tends to have a more sophisticated taste in terms of products, even services, or the way that you dress, the things that you put on your face, everything. Your product is a bit more sophisticated typically compared to somebody from Moldova that doesn't have the same access to those products and services. Romania is now a part of the EU system, and eventually when you join the Schengen system, you'll have more access to Western European goods. So your ability and your purchasing power is going to expand. So it's a diverse spectrum that you're looking at. If you're talking about your demographics, for example, for your age group, your age group tend to buy products online. I think there's Talk My Row now. There's all sorts of online distribution channels that you can, buy products and market onto, and do all sorts of product placement activity on, and it diversifies your options. So it's a general, it's a fairly general subject. It's hard, if you give me an example in terms of what kind of product would, you think will generate interest in the Romanian market more, maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. And I'll give you my contact information also. Go ahead. Do you have questions, or? Dave, please.
Yeah, no, I just wonder how, I am a baby boomer, I'm a dinosaur, but I have a business, so I have to embrace Facebook and Twitter, and it's a way I go about my business. But what I'm finding is, I can see there's almost a utopian, it does break down barriers, which is wonderful. But what I've come in contact with is that how do you police the social media? Because we've had some bad things on Twitter, and also say TripAdvisor, where you'll get people deliberately sabotaging other people's business. So you have this great democracy, this great liberation, but sometimes it's capable of being twisted.
Oh yeah.
And I agree, it breaks down racism, but on the other hand, it does give a voice to the right-wing groups. That's happened in Britain,
right?
Which is very disturbing. It's like we'll have people from the British Nationalist Party following us on Twitter. So you ban them, you black them up because we don't want to be associated.
Right.
but they've still got that voice, and
But, you know, we live in a very democratic, you know, society today. There are a lot of bad apples out there.
yeah.
I mean, you have social hackers, you have political, you know, agendas that, you know, different political groups are trying to influence, you know, attitudes and the mindset. It's a good question in what you place, but I think for the majority of the population of the world community, I don't think that's so. It really depends. I've lived in London. I know, I know, you know, certain conditions that are so hard to control in London just because of, you know, freedom of speech, balance of power, you know, and then you have a parliamentarian system that have various agendas, and then you have a more vocal system that is anti-globalization, and then another system that is pro-America, another system pro-Europe. It's a mixed bag, excuse me, because I think the more advanced a society becomes, the more influential they get. And that's just the way the world is. You know, the more people speak English, the more command, you know, of the English language you have, the more influential you become. Just because of this, you know, because of the ability of the language to convince. And also educate, you know. And so I think that's always going to be there. You know, YouTube has, you know, policies that is about 18-page long. Facebook's got 35-page long policies. Not everybody read them. Not everybody understand, you know, the information in them. But that's just how life is. I mean, when Facebook was developed, people tried to hack into Facebook and started copying their info source, you know, the text to program Facebook. Like I said in the book, there is now new legal systems that are being developed by, you know, various governments and societies to combat this misgeneration of information. But they can't touch it so much because of the shared economy level, where you share stuff on your Facebook page, it becomes economically, you know, economicalized. You know, brand products and services. Right, brand products and services is associated to pricing now. You know, marketing. So that's the issue. You know, there are people that will continuously try to sabotage, you know, your various various websites, not just Facebook. But there is no way that one individual in government or political system could know who that, you know, bunch are going to be. You don't know how they're going to act. You know, what you can do is develop a platform where you can, you know, provide penalties to them for you know, misbehaving. You know, I mean, in the U.S., when I was in Washington, I was with the federal government. I was a liaison to the White House last year, and people hacked into our system because I was you know, a financial analyst at that time, and people wanted to know how much our budget was for fiscal year 2013. But there's always going to be people like that. You know, you can't change the, you know, the fact that there's going to be people that will misbehave. All you can do is provide, you know, punishments and ramification for their actions if they misbehave. But a great question, because I know it's really hard in the UK. It's really hard because you guys, you have a very democratic society and it's open.
Oh yeah.
Open season for just about everything.
It is open season. Obviously, it seems to make you vulnerable, and it provides some corners for some very dark people to live. And with cyberbullying as well.
Yeah.
It's quite worrying.
Well, it is worrying, but our reality today has become to the point that we have to be more sophisticated.
Yeah.
You know, the dilemma specifically for the U.S. market is that, you know, we have a society that's wealthy, we have a society that's well educated, we have a society that tends to travel abroad, and then we have a society that is also very vulnerable because we know that there are people in our midst in the U.S. that just don't understand this, concept of globalization. They don't understand the concept of technology. They don't understand why we have to adapt to it. It's just a reality. If you sleep, like I said, the boiled frog mentality. If you're a boiled frog, you're that frog in that pot, and you don't get out of that pot when that pot starts boiling, you're going to get boiled in there, and you're going to get killed. And what you can't just, you can't operate as a person and not develop and evolve mentally as an individual, because you're going to get stuck. If you're stuck, then you're out of luck. That's just how it is. I mean, there's always going to be a race to the top. May it be countries or people, the book, The World is Flat, when it was written. I've actually spoke with the author, Mr. Friedman, in Washington, D.C. when I was in Washington, and the concept of the book, The World is Flat, is that everything's flattening out. Everybody's got access to information, opportunities. So if you get stuck on doing the same thing that you've been doing for the rest of your life, and you're not able to adapt to the changes in the world, then you're going to suffer. That's just the name of the game. And today, in this generation, that change happens really fast. Really fast. Asha.
I just have to confess, it's not proud that I don't have Facebook and Twitter and so on. I think, and I suppose that it's also social media offer with comma the possibility to be in a trap. And it's probably an unusual instrument for uneducated people. Probably the world is not prepared, entire world, to fully access for these instruments. But I hope I will have next year.
Yeah.
And I hope that also all that type of barriers could be stopped, and for the way to the top of the exchange markets and so on will contribute, also those tools will contribute to change also businesses, in social businesses.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and your generation is a perfect example. When Romania joined the EU system back in 2007, the farmers in Romania were against it because they didn't want to adapt into the Western European way of killing their animals, catching their fish, developing their crops. And today, they go to Bucharest trying to buy, technology that is so sophisticated that it goes beyond Brussels, classification of sophistication. So, like I said, social media is a new normal. It's new in so many levels because you're not only exposed to ideas and mindset, you're also exposed to behavior. And when you have that kind of metamorphosis of information and content and value system, how do you adapt to that? It's a challenge, because all you know is what you've seen all your life. If you look at back in the days when the cavemen were in a cave, right? They see the flame in front of them. And when the flame burns out, they go to sleep. Right? When the flames, burn out, they fall asleep because that's the time for them to fall asleep in their mindsets. Okay? But the cavemen's children were building little tiny flames throughout the caves. Why is that? Why is it majority of the population that have adapted and seen what they are accustomed to, only able to, adapt and behave to what they know, what is in front of them. They don't look at what's around them. And that's how we are as people, because we are in a comfort zone. Okay? The more you're in your comfort zone, the less that you're going to see the world, the less you're going to adapt, the less you're going to want to think outside of the box. Look at America, for example. I've only promoted my book in Washington, D.C. I haven't promoted my book anywhere else in America. The reason for that is because most Americans will not buy this. They will buy Xboxes. They will buy things that, you know, is instantaneously gratifying for our population. We have this instant gratification mentality and culture. You know, but at the end of the game, where do we really want to be as individuals, as people, as a society? Do we want to advance, or do we want to get stuck on stupid? Who wants to be stuck on stupid? Nobody wants to get stuck on stupid. Not even my dog wants to get stuck on stupid. He doesn't listen to me. When I tell my dog to sit, he doesn't sit. She doesn't sit. She just moves. You know, so a lot of what's really happening today is a very modern advancement that we're all having to adjust to. We just got lucky that my generation is a little bit more open to that adaptation compared to the older population, because the older population is holding tight to what they know. They don't want to let go of what they know, you know. And I'm saying, I'm not just talking about, you know, the older folks, the baby boomers or so forth, in terms of not letting go. I'm talking about social policies that are irrelevant today. You know, in the U.S. we still have grandfather laws. When you can't bathe a goat, if you have a goat and you want to bathe your goat in front of your house, okay, you can't do it in front of your house. You can bathe the goat in your driveway, or some crazy, you know, laws like that. You know, but today, in this context of this generation in time, we all have to adapt. And that's just the name of the game. Either you adapt or you don't. You know, in the U.S. we had a struggle having the very first African American president of multi-race. You know, half black, half white, as a president, because we weren't exposed to it in the past. We never thought it all happened. Okay, and that's the case.
I think I belong to an open generation, but I'm wondering what type of education, what type of relation have all youngsters which are virtual people, totally unreal.
Yeah.
The generation, okay.
They will live just virtual. They will live in dreams and.
No, I don't think.
No, I
it's,
think that's not the answer. That will live
yeah.
virtual.
You're saying that how are they going to formulate their ideas and concepts and the way that they're able to develop?
This to be also a kind of push to go on to the real life, not to stay on the unreal.
I'm trying to understand exactly the question. So you're saying, should they look at reality more than
and to have more links to
with reality?
Yes.
I view CNN news on my Facebook page. I take on, you know, Bloomberg reports on my Facebook page, Wall Street journals on my Facebook page. I don't see this being a medium of, you know, of distraction. It's more of a medium of package information.
Just a small part are looking on Wall Street pages and
Yeah, like I said to you, I'm a very boring person. But at this point in the game, it's packaged. When you have information that is already there, that is tailored to your ways. For example, if you like, I don't know, if you like a specific brand of wine, and you click like on their page, then every updates on their wine product is going to go onto your Facebook page, right?
so it's just another instrument to promote consume.
Yeah. It's a way to
And it is a way for them to analyze their audience, because they can go back and analyze who likes them and what do they like and what's
Right.
the population segment that they that
Yeah,
likes them.
it brings us back to the social economic concept of it. I think what you guys are looking at is what is the tangible, the more materialized benefit.
I mean, if everybody's clicking on the wine, who's actually going to pick the grapes and make the wine?
Yeah,
I mean, we have teenagers in
Yeah.
our house,
sure.
and they will spend more time in a virtual reality than,
Then
say,
physically,
All the
Physically
people
with the family.
will work online.
Well, not every,
Yes.
here's the point that we're really trying to address, is that how many of you guys would want to pick that grape? Raise your hand if you want to pick the grape for me.
yeah, I'm quite happy. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
If you want to pick the grape for me, then have at it. What we're trying to incorporate here is how can we get other forms of picking the wine products, may it be robots, may it be androids or whatever, there's talks now with people delivering using, these, what was the name of this? They have hovercrafts that are now delivering mail.
Oh yes, for Amazon.
So who wants to do the menial jobs? No one wants to continue doing the menial jobs because your quality of life is going to deplete. Now, what you want to do is advance your mental attributes so that you can incorporate your knowledge into a more advanced, more sophisticated way of thinking. In the U.S. we have issues with Mexican farmers coming in, picking our potatoes, picking our tobacco, all of these things that nobody wants to do. And then you talk to a Mexican diplomat, and then they would say, well, you know what, we're actually controlling robots to man the borders. Okay, so these are all sophisticated changes that's happening throughout the world. You wouldn't want to be stuck on the same level of coexistence as the old folks had to grow up in, because every single one of them complains about it. So how are we now adjusting? And you're right. You don't belong to a more close-minded generation. And it's not an issue of a close-minded generation. It's an issue of higher level of thinking. And when you think in a form that it socially advances not just you but the society, then that's where it becomes more of an economic attribute in terms of purchasing power. How many of you would rather stay using RON versus using euro? Who wants to make money in euro versus RON? Raise your hand. Anybody? You want to keep euro?
Yeah,
Please explain why.
I think we are not prepared for the euro, and seeing the other countries that adhere to euro, the level of the normal population, the medium,
Right.
go down. I'm not sure, I'm not an economic expert.
No, that's fine. And the reason that I want to make a
Let's see.
comparison is because this. When a society develops, you go through changes, transitional changes, growing pains is what they call them. You have to learn to adapt. Okay? If you don't learn to adapt, then you're going to stay at the stagnant level of growth as you've always been. Okay? The reason I asked who here would rather make money in euro versus RON is because the purchasing power of euro is stronger, right? And you'd be able to save more, buy better things with it. So everybody, you have to associate it in terms of how you incorporate and associate yourself as an individual, as a consumer, as a thinker, as a level of an educated person in terms of how you want to engage. If you engage the same way as people that aren't educated engages, then you're going to be dissatisfied. And that's the theory behind FACECONOMICS, because you don't want to be stuck engaging on the same level that you've always engaged.
But I'm not considering myself in
Sure.
stuck. I am considering myself evaluating person. I like to learn a lot, but
Sure.
not necessarily adapting everything from the more
Yeah.
evaluating society. I think
Right.
that our particularities
Mhm.
identify us better than adapting. I don't know.
But, you know, I was talking,
Different,
yeah.
doesn't have to be
No, it has nothing to do with losing your you know,
identity.
identity. It has to do of increasing your potential. And, you know, when I was talking to the Romanian Tourist Board in New York City, and they want to put more websites about Romania, they want to publish YouTube videos about Romania in different places. They didn't have that access for free before. Had they go online and develop YouTube videos back in the days, then they would have had to pay more money in order for them to develop those videos. Today, it's free. So, is it improve their social standing? Is it improve their ability to, you know, incorporate their agenda, their mission in promoting Romanian tourism in the U.S. market more effectively? I said yes. Okay, but will somebody from, you know, from Germany see it that way? Might not be. You know, just because we all live in a interconnected world doesn't mean that we're all going to accept everything that we see. You know, both it.
Is it fine? One tiny question? We've seen that you're very familiar with the East European environment and Romania. And I was just wondering, could you share with us like one or two very good examples of where FACECONOMICS was applied in this region, or otherwise an area where you see huge potential?
We started the FACECONOMIC Challenge in Yash last year, and then I talked about it in Bucharest too. The FACECONOMIC Challenge is just to share your brand, products, and services on your social media pages, and it's been applied also in the Republic of Moldova and Chisinau, and in PEX, Hungary, and Varna, Bulgaria. Like I said, it's not everybody that will they're not going to latch on to, you know, a new concept like this. It takes time. Facebook has only been in existence for, you know, a few years, 2006, or no, 2007. So it's not been out there that long. When Haya, you know, formulated his theory on domestic microeconomics, it took him 25 years to prove his point. So, I mean, all this is developing in our generation. You know, it might be our children's generation that will say, okay, we actually benefited from it, you know, because they actually have data to prove it. The OECD still don't have data for social media pages. Facebook itself don't have data for the kind of, you know, SME development, like small, medium-sized enterprise development. They don't have any data for that. I mean, you can advertise and pay $10 per page so that they'll, you know, crank out, you know, marketing banners and stuff like that on other people's pages, but they don't even have a structure to see who the demographics that actually see them, and if the purchasing power, that demographics is actually associated to that person that says this is, you know, they're Yale, Harvard graduates or whatever, and they make $150,000 a year. There's no way for them to associate that. So it's not quantifiable at this point. You know, there's just no measurement. I mean, it's just so sophisticated and so fast that there's just not an engine that can really track down, you know, simultaneously. Okay.
Just one question. Do you think that social media and FACECONOMICS could increase the quality of tourism in our area?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Quality, and not about
Well,
image, false or true.
you're looking at economics in terms of, you have to adapt and engage and actually formulate a plan. You can have, if you have a social media page, you have to create a business plan or tourism plan saying that, okay, this is what we want to do. Point A, you know, develop this website. Point B, all this. Do marketing on it. You actually, you can't just look at you know, Facebook in itself and say it's going to do all the job for you. You actually have to do the legwork in developing, you know, a strategy and a structure for tourism. Like I said, I've talked with you know, Manuel Aldous. He's the director of Romanian tourism in New York, and we were trying to formulate a plan to develop, you know, some sort of strategy. But if you have a strategy and you don't vocalize that strategy with the rest of the, you know, your population, they don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, then they're not going to, you know, follow suit. You know, you have to actually promote your concept, identify that concept with the population. I mean, I've seen a lot of your maps and your pamphlets and paraphernalia. They're really great material. All we need to do now is develop that network and sharing that information with you know, folks around the world. So, I mean, like I said, there's YouTube now that you can plug in videos and other materials onto that is relatively cheap. We're on YouTube, video, live video, where it's relatively cheap for us to engage in this kind of event. So that's just the nature of FACECONOMICS, because we're not having to spend so much, you know, we're not having to create a budget for marketing per se, specifically just so that people around the world will get access to our information. You know, they can Google search us, they can Google search our information online while we sleep, can translate it, Google translate it. So there really is no barriers now to information. It's just what you do with that information. You know, and my parents aren't on Facebook. My mom and my dad's not on Facebook, and I'm not going to let them befriend me on Facebook. So, but you know, it's just our way of adaptation. I think the longer that we understand the world at large, the better off we're all going to be. You know, the struggle, you know, I went to the secret communist prison, and it's a sad, sad place to be in. I've never been exposed to, you know, so much strife. I don't know what it would be like, you know, if each of those prisoners had their Facebook page, and we can go on their Facebook page and see their thoughts, their mindsets, what they were, you know, incorporating into, you know, their Facebook page during the time when, you know, they were in prison. You know, it's a sad story, but it's a great revolution of what we as people can advance in. And that's just how I think we should all, you know, aspire to be. You know, matter of fact, I was talking to Vasily the other night, and we were talking about how, you know, a lot of Romanian immigrants that are going into Western European countries are in the IT field or are programmers and developers, doctors. You know, before they wouldn't even let Romanian doctors and IT programmers into Western Europe to do those kind of jobs. Now they're leaders. They're the one that teaching. They're teaching Germans. They're teaching French. They're teaching, you know, the Spaniards how to program. Ashe.
Bringing this FACECONOMICS to a smaller scale, I can only tell the story from the area I'm coming from. We live in a tiny northern town in Britain, and what they have started to do, which is a great thing, is networking. All the tiny little businesses networking and trying to help each other and trying to make local businesses sustainable. That means, well, if you need eggs, you don't go and buy it in a supermarket, you buy from somebody who's got actually a farm in the area.
Yeah.
So this way you help him.
Right.
that person will buy a portrait or a painting that one of the local artists has done. So it's a great tool to help the area grow in a wealthier place.
Sure.
And you were talking about the prison. I used to work there for.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not when it was a prison. Where it
Right.
was,
Yeah.
as a museum, and back then, of course, there was no Facebook or no means for the prisoners to communicate
Right.
and to express their thoughts. But
Yeah.
one of them did. It was one of the Bratiano brothers, used to be a prime minister, and watched in his cell, so that he maintained his sanity. He wrote with his nails the history of the humanity as well as he could remember it. So that was the way that he communicated back then. It was just a small.
Yeah, it's an amazing wall post. That's it. He posted on his actual wall, literally.
Yeah, literally on his wall.
Yeah. You know, it's different because my parents were born overseas, okay? And growing up, I was exposed to the international world and also the American way of thinking. And the more I conceptualized it growing up, the more I realized that we're not so different. And I think the only suggestion that we have been listening to are the suggestions that keeps telling us that we're different as people. That's all we've been hearing, how different we are. If you read history books, if you read, certain society, classical, neoclassical, Baroque, all these things are telling us how different we are. Individualism. Well, now the content of a more globalist society is manifesting itself, that's saying we're not so different after all. And the more that we get exposed to this sophisticated way of receiving information, things change. We start to conceptualize, and what is kind of funny, because, I'm sorry, I didn't know what's your name. What was your name back there? The guy in the blue. The other one, I'm sorry. The guy in the blue jacket. Yeah, Christian. Well, you know what, Christian? We never thought that we are going to be able to develop this in Eastern Europe. Okay, because emerging and frontier markets is a part, Eastern and Central Southeast Europe are emerging frontier markets. So I think that it's just powerful that you brought up that, that idea with what you had said, because if everybody thinks like you, then everybody means they're questioning things. That's what we need to do. We can't just absorb information because we're telling you. When people are suggested information all the time and not actually evaluating that information, researching that information, then they're going to get stuck. They're going to become robots. And for the longest time, when people tell you, dictate to you what you should do, think, act, feel, behave, smell, look, then that's all you're going to know. My nephews are black, African American. My girlfriend, obviously, she's white. She's Romanian. She's from Sighetu. So all this has been an influential contribution in the way that I myself think as a person. And everybody should think, for themselves. You can't absorb information just because people tell you. You have to think for yourself. And the ramification of your action is going to be based on what you do. Socially, we've been a British colony in the U.S. And that was the very best thing that ever happened to America, being a British colony. But yet, there were still people that went against the British. Why? I don't know. So, yeah. Is there any?
You have convinced me to buy the book. Please tell us where it could be achieved.
I try not to part ways from these books because I use them when I travel, but they're on Amazon, eBay, I think every major book channels. You can buy the book on there. My publisher, based in New York, doesn't like me to give them away to the point that there is actually a downloadable book. You can download the book online, and they don't want me to share that. But when we're not being videotaped, then I'll tell you where to go. But the reason is because the FACECONOMICS is not just a product; it's also a brand and a concept. And the way that we're really trying to formulate our strategy with our marketing effort is to make sure that the branding itself will supersede, the stuff that is in the book. Because just like macro economics, we want to make sure that people will use, the concept to influence their life and influence others with it, and also benefit from it, obviously. So, yeah. But we have, I guess we'll sell 4, and then I'll just order more later if need be. But I would be more than happy to, answer any more questions if you guys have any other questions. I think 2 hours is a long time to be sitting, so mulțumesc frumos pentru timp tău. Vreau spus Crăciun fericit Paște. Trecut. Crăciun fericit trecut. Și anul viitor. Is that right? Anul fericit. Și îmi pare bine. I would love to talk to every single one of you if you have any questions. And thank you again.